So, we should be live any second. There I am. Hey everybody, we're here. Happy May Eve, or almost May Day kind of thing. I think officially it starts at midnight. Or almost May Day kind of thing. If you heard that double, that was Ian getting on. Opal says hello. Hi Opal. A couple people have jumped on already. Awesome. Is that a picture of a little owl? I think so. Yes. That's what it looks like. Blair says hi Siofra. Hi Blair. Welcome. Lavender Maja says hello. Hi Lavender. Ian says hello everyone. Please participate in a pleasant and social manner. Opal says yes it is. He. Yes. I think officially it's like midnight tonight until midnight tomorrow is the traditional holiday kind of thing. Darlene says hello. Hi Darling. We have news about Ian and his health, so we learned something this week. Looks like Ian has been having serotonin syndrome, so the doctor is adjusting his meds to hopefully stop it from happening. So that's sort of scary but good.
I'm feeling better, so I think it's probably works.
I think he's correct.
Probably just what I need, yeah.
Yep.
Causes some weird symptoms.
And one we didn't know about apparently was all his muscle pain he's been having for a while. So yeah, he was able to mow the lawn and not be in agony. So that was awesome.
Yep.
Ruth says hi all. Hi Ruth. It's like, boy, I think part of it is luck, finding the right person to tell the symptoms to.
Well, you gotta have somebody who listens to you. We had a previous doctor that never listened to me, and I had serious sleep problems. I couldn't sleep at all, and he never would prescribe me anything that would work. And this doctor, when I got him, he goes, "Oh yeah, give these a try," and it worked great. And they're not narcotics, so
Right.
you know, why did I have to go for years and years with that doctor not giving me anything to help with my sleep problems?
And they're human beings just like everybody else. And they have their own narratives in their head, and sometimes you end up in a bad groove and they can't seem to let you get out of it. It's the way people think. Not just as doctors, but all around. Erin says hello. Opal says it can be hard to find the right doctor. Yes. Lewel says hello. Hi Lewel. And Ava says hi. Hi Ava. How you doing? And Opal says there's a shortage of doctors in my area. Mine left the province. Ugh. Well, yeah. I think it was the same doctor that I fired because he decided I was psychosomatic. That, you know, it was all in my head, even though I only saw him like a few times a year. I'm like, hello, hypochondriac. If I was a hypochondriac, I'd be in your office like at least once a week. Not.
Yeah, well.
So I lost confidence in him altogether. And now he's the doctor for our local hospice. And I was a member of hospice for a while, volunteer. And I went to the volunteer dinner. And he was the keynote speaker, as it were, for the dinner and was reading from the Bible. So I'm like, well, that explains that. That's why we didn't get along. Violet says, hi guys. Hi Violet. Thanks for popping in, saying hello. But yeah, it is difficult. And living in a small town, you don't usually get the A+ doctors because they're going to be at the major university hospitals and things like that. Not going to be in a small town. Sundrop says, hi Siofra, I ran across Cyber Witch's Magic School at Home video. I'm going to try it out. Good luck. Let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, you can always ask me what I think. And I'll tell you what I think. That doesn't mean you have to believe me, but, you know. That's one thing you can count on. I'll tell you my honest opinion if I have one. But I don't expect everyone to agree with my opinion. It's okay to have differences in opinion. Apparently my tongue is tied up in knots this morning or this afternoon. I don't even know what time of day it is.
I should untie it to yourself.
Yeah, right. Untie my tongue. I wonder, well, we'll have to look that up. Where does that come from? I guess that might be from people who are born with that extra little thing in the base of their mouth.
Oh, yeah, their tongue is actually
tied down.
Yeah.
And that's what they call them.
Yeah.
Sundrop says, okay, her channel is called Cyber Witch. Jono says, hi everyone. Hi.
Hello.
How you doing down there? I guess you're going through Samhain, aren't you? Yeah. Oh, I was dreaming about some fae a couple of days ago, and I wrestled them to the ground, which I thought was interesting. They were small. There were two that I wrestled to the ground. I'm not sure why I wrestled them, or why I needed to wrestle them, or if we were playing a game or something. I just remember that part of the dream. But they had white hair like the she, but they were not full grown. They were like children size. So, who knows? Sometimes my dreams are a mystery to me.
Wasn't it Jacob that wrestled with an angel in the...
Yeah, but I don't think he wrestled with fairies. I don't know. I don't remember.
Who knows, you know?
But I thought it was pretty funny. I was amused when I woke up and I'm like, huh, okay. I don't think I've ever done that before. Something new. Never know what the brain can come up with. But anyway, I'm excited that we're getting into that time of year. It's good. Definitely feel the energy shifting around.
Yeah, it's nice. Starting to get a little bit of that spring energy around here finally.
Yeah, we're slow to get into the spring in our area.
Yeah, our season seems like it's delayed about a month from the rest of Oregon, and I'm sure it's this large mass of water we live by.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
Living
part of
by
it.
the ocean.
Then our yard, the
Everything.
flowers in our yard are delayed by at least 2 weeks from the rest of town, which is another mystery. But we think it's because of the shade from the tree next door that it slows down the warming of the soil in our garden and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anyway, nice to be able to get out. Sundrop says, weather's getting warmer here in Ohio. Awesome. Nice to see things thawing out, warming up in different places. Of course, where they're getting all the tornadoes, I'm sure they're not all that happy about that. And there's that large swath of flooding along the Mississippi Valley right now from all the snow they got this winter. It's like weather happens. It just happens.
Yeah, which is why I'm glad we live here.
Yes.
It does. Living by the ocean definitely like mellows the variations between hot and cold out a lot.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit cooler than the Santa Cruz area where I lived for 5 years before I moved up to
Makes
Oregon.
it nice and stable though.
But it does make it stable. We got into the 60s the other day, and for us that's nice and warm. It's time to not wear a jacket or a sweater for those of us who are adapted to the weather here. It's always interesting to see how long it takes people to adapt.
Took me about 10 years, I swear.
Yep, your body definitely gets into these rhythms, and it takes a while for them to shift into a different gear and so forth. So anybody have plans for the holiday up and coming in particular? I know we're not doing anything particular, but I put some flowers on the altar because of the time of year, and I just wanted to decorate it a little bit. I was going to get some fresh flowers, but they were so expensive for so few flowers. I just thought, eh. But I was remembering a May Day I had in Santa Cruz, probably in '87 or so, I think. and maybe even 88. And I was wandering around the area and I found this like abandoned piece of property, and it had the most wonderful flowers on it. It was like there were fuchsias that were blooming and all sorts of other flowers that were blooming. It was quite fantastic, and there was nobody around, and so I just started gathering all these fresh blossoms and stuff from the bushes and sat down and grabbed a bunch of tall grass because since it was an abandoned lot, it had nice tall grass, and made a braided headdress out of the grass, and then added the flowers to it, and just sat there in the sun. And the birds came and were sitting around in the bushes and stuff and singing while I was doing it. It was just a wonderful, magical kind of moment, memory for the holiday. And I had a fantastic headdress. I love fuchsias, and I had them hanging all over my headdress that I made. It was quite fabulous. So I was thinking about that. I just thought, like, neat memories of other Beltanes that we've attended. So either I'm sort of stuck or no one's saying anything.
I think nobody's saying anything at the moment. That's
Okay.
all.
Just making sure, since that happened last week and Mercury is still retrograde. So come on, tell us some of your stories.
Give us a subject,
Or a subject.
or a question,
Or whatever.
an observation.
Something to get our ball rolling downhill, which is easier than rolling it uphill. Going with the flow.
Well, I guess you're going to have to pick something.
Well, I'm talking about May Day and other May Days. Sheila says, hello from West Virginia. Internet went out just a while ago. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it because of the storms going through the area? I know that there's supposed to be some storms this morning. I'm not sure how the rest of the day was supposed to progress. Yeah, there were other ones where we went out into the fields. We went into the woods, and some of us were sun-clad, some were sky-clad, and some were dressed, and we were just dancing around in the field of flowers. Blair says, do you believe that the universe causes certain things to happen for a reason? There's a plan for every person's life? Yeah, not like planned out specifically. I think that people come here with an idea in mind of what maybe they want to accomplish, but the universe adapts completely to you, whatever it is you choose to do after you get here, and responds to the energy of what you put out.
My belief is those things that come through, that might come through from, like, say, a past life, like leftover karma and stuff, aren't so specific. It's an energy that's going to tend to push you a certain direction, but I believe that you can, especially if you become aware of it, you can resist those things or whatever. So it's almost like, it's like certain tendencies are there rather than definite things. That's my belief. So there might be certain tendencies which you can then work with or not work with or change,
Sort of like whatever sign you're born under.
Yeah, but you might be stuck with a bunch of stuff left over from a past life, but it's not as specific,
And I don't think it's specific as to how you're supposed to work through it. If you're trying to work through something, that there's a lot of different options, and the options are up to you to pick.
Yeah, I perceive it as like a bundle of energy that you need to get rid of one way or another, and the means might differ totally depending on where you are in this lifetime and what your situation was, and they come out, these things seem to hit weak points, so to speak, whatever it is. So it might vary, it could have been the same thing, and it might vary totally between two different people because their lives are so different in reality. So that's my thought. Those things influence, but they don't insist. But I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, free will is real as far as it goes. And, we're here to figure out how to navigate the life that we're in. So, Opal says, remind us again about feeling energy with our bodies. You talked about it a couple of weeks or so ago. Our bodies are kind of dowsing rods in a way. Well, yes. Depending on your gifts and how they're tuned, I've gone through periods of time where I feel sensations in my body when I'm getting impressions, like when I helped the police find the dead body. That one was very physical, where I actually felt things happening to my body as if they had happened, that had happened to her, as if they had happened to me. But the other thing is like, the more aware you are of your own thoughts and feelings and your own energy and how it is, the more able you are to tell when foreign or external influences come in and try to impress something on you. And so that's one of the ways that you can do that. Like if spirit is trying to communicate with you, how do you know the difference between your own inner voice and an external spirit voice that sounds like your inner voice? So that would be that. And noticing things like, okay, so when I was in the big open building and I walked through where this house used to stand and had been standing in the same spot for 100 years, and I felt cobwebs on my face. That could be a way of reading the area with your body and figuring things out. And then I think what you're referring to is when I'm doing an investigation and I'm trying to figure out if I sense a energy coming into a house, trying to figure out which way it's coming from or which way it's spinning, if there's a vortex, a portal, or something like that. And with that, I close my eyes and sort of try to not have any impressions, and I wait, and my body will move in the direction of the energy, which would be like using it as a dowsing rod. So, I feel the push from a certain direction, and then my body will actually move away from the push. So in whichever way it's coming, my body will move in the opposite direction, and that gives me directionality if it's just a line of energy coming through. But it'll also give me like whether it's counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on the feeling inside my body when it happens. I can feel the impulse to make my body go in one direction or another. Sometimes I see it with my eyes, but in order to let that happen, I mean, you can just stand still, close your eyes, and see whether or not you're capable of standing there without moving to start with. So then, if you're in a place where you think there might be energy and you do the same thing, you've already determined that it isn't normal for you to just start falling in one direction or another. So you have to know your own body too, because some people might have a medical condition that would make that difficult. So yeah, experimenting with yourself and finding out what works for your body. Some people might use a pendulum to have the energy move and push it in one direction or another. So Lewell says, yesterday was an excellent day. My book finally appeared on Amazon. It's real now. Awesome. That's terrific. Violet says, I want to ask about your statues and how you know when one has become occupied and how you did it. Then mirrored reversal magic too. I forget what you said last week. Again, you got to be able to sense things that aren't you to be able to tell whether or not a statue is occupied. Yeah, we're going to do a video on that. We were going to do one last week, but then we had to do some errands that kind of took up our time. But we're going to do a whole video on enlivening statues and what we know about it and how we can sense it. But, it's like, if you have a statue of a specific deity, it's already a created house for that energy. that can occupy it. And then if you're focused on it and working with it, talking to the deity that's behind it, the deity or energy or force or whatever might decide to then send a piece of itself and be connected to that statue. So it becomes like a microphone extension to its realm, so it can feel, sense, hear what you're doing and respond, I guess. Mirrored reversal magic is just using a mirrored surface to send energy back to somebody that you don't want. You can send back positive energy too if you want to, but generally speaking, I don't worry about people sending me positive energy unless it's with a agenda. To some people, toxic positivity is a real thing, but usually you use that to send back negative thoughts from other people or
just
magic.
charge up a mirror to reflect them back. So.
And in your energy field, I do that in my energy field. I do that with the little mirrors I have in the windows of my house facing outward. Just there's so much stuff out there. And when you're in a sensitive space, you can pick up on a lot of things you really don't need to know or don't want to know. And it helps to kind of keep your own airways clear that way, so you're more in sync with your environment. Claire says, for example, I was going to unalive myself last year and had a plan, and now I have a 6-week-old baby, and I felt happy for the first time in years. Well, I'm glad that you stayed and that you have a baby, and that can be a purpose. You've now acquired that as a purpose, and having someone that depends on you that you need to take care of is one of the things that can help ground you and keep you here. I know when I was going through a similar kind of feeling when my daughter was little, the fact that I was nursing her helped to keep me grounded and gave me a reason to stay, because there weren't any other reasons that I could think of at the time to stay here. I was getting ready to check out, hadn't found anybody nice. That took a while yet after that, because Jade was 16, I think, when we met.
Yeah.
So, and from what I understand, deciding to become unalive earlier doesn't actually do what you hope it will. It sort of puts you in limbo until your time here was going to be done anyway. So you're sort of putting whatever it was on hold and then have to come back. Lavender says, does everyone have a past life? One hopes so, because if they're a brand new soul and it's their very first life, they're going to be pretty messed up. I'm sure there are some people, though. I mean, that's the thing in itself. Like, there's this idea out there that I've run into over and over again that there is a certain number of souls that were created at the beginning of time, and then that's all there are. And so the question becomes, are people being born without them because there's so many more people now than there ever have been in all the history of time and so forth? And I think that is a misunderstanding of nature in itself, because nature is always evolving and transforming and making things new, changing a species or a plant or whatever, and there's no reason why souls aren't the same. That if there is, and that's why people are so different. They're different ages. They've got a different level of comprehension, understanding, experience than other spirits or people that might be around them, and that is a good explanation as to why. So I think that there are new souls out there. JT says, question, why does one use different objects when one does not need them when healing? Focus and concentration, accessing different parts of your brain, imagery and tactile sensation can allow you to access different aspects of your healing ability or your mental capacity or so forth. It's sort of like dreams. There's a lot of different imagery in a dream that connects you to certain places in your life or in what's going on around you. So yeah, we need focus to be able to marshal all of our energy into a single purpose, and objects help us do that.
Yeah, they can bring up stuff. They can connect you immediately if you have an object that you've worked with over and over. The more you work with it, the more it'll tend to put you immediately into contact with that energy, whatever it is. So if you're using a wand for willpower purposes or for some other purpose, like a solar wand or something, it just basically, because of years of working with it, makes it way easier for you to get into contact with that energy.
Yeah, since this is May Day, I brought in my fairy wand because this is a time for the fairy kingdom to make more contact and stuff like that. And so although I don't need to have this wand in order to connect with them because I have a ongoing relationship with them, having this, because they like it, it helps to focus the different aspects of my memory, my mind, my experience and so forth on the subject, and gives them a focus as well. So if you think of your brain like a computer, like a lot of people do, and you have different computer programs that are running in your head, you've got the one that takes care of day-to-day stuff like driving and going to work and making a living and so forth, and then you have the ones, the parts of your brain that are about dreaming or healing or spiritual evolution or development, and objects can help to access those parts faster. You can still do it without them, but it makes it streamlined a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'd like to add that it's somebody might misconstrue what Siofra said, that it's all psychological, and it's not, because you can have an object that somebody else touches and it can zap them or affect them without them knowing about how it was charged or anything in particular.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I'm just talking about when you need one for yourself.
Yeah.
Because that was the question there. So I don't know how to pronounce that one. Queerdo, I guess. Hello everyone, hope all are well. Welcome. Violet says, I'm leaving in 30 minutes to start the 10 weeks of shamanism class again, starting May 11th. This is the intro. It's the only way that I become still as if I attend. And she guides the show in 10 Zooms. That sounds like a fun thing to do.
That's what I said.
Oh yes, that's what Ian says. Sheila says, got disconnected again, maybe as you say, Storm or CME. Sorry to have missed the beginning. Well, glad you're back. Opal says, sometimes when I meditate, my upper body will start to rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. My arms lifted up once and moved around, and I can feel the energy holding them. It's weird. That could be Kundalini.
Sounds like a Kundalini credit to me.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like the energy in your body is moving through it and doing things to clear blockages and stuff like that. And it often feels as if it's external. So that's one of the weirdnesses of the Kundalini Kriyas and stuff, is that it can feel external, and some people insist that it is, but it is an internal energetic process. And like when I'm doing massage therapy, there's a thing that I do sometimes called unwinding, where I'll just like place my fingertips on a joint, across a joint, and just hold it, and then allow the muscles to move on their own. And they unwind, lengthen, and shorten, and change position and so forth by themselves, to the point where in some cases I've had just a fingertip on an arm across an elbow joint or something, and the whole arm will start moving up above the head and whatnot. I've had it happen in people's necks by holding the points just below the skull, and the whole head and neck will start to move on its own. And to the person who it's happening to, it feels to them like I'm doing it, but I know that I'm not. It's their body that's doing it. And it's difficult to...
Yeah. For me, a lot of times it's like, not always, sometimes it's just a big rush of energy that pushes me, like a stretch, that how you feel when you need to stretch and your body just stretches and you aren't really consciously so much in control of it. A lot of mine come through like that. But a lot of mine also come through when I get them, not that I get a lot of them, but when they happen, a lot of times it'll be almost like my mind is a little distracted while my body puts itself into an asana or a position or something. and then I'll realize consciously what I'm doing. So it kind of happens without me noticing it a lot of times. But all that's Kundalini in my case.
So Vanessa V says, hello Siofra and Ian and everybody, finally made it back after a long time. Hope everyone is doing well. Hi Vanessa V, thanks for joining us again. We always appreciate it when you guys come back. Desideradum says, hey all, I had a question. What are good offerings for the spirit of a house? Not a brownie, but an actual building. Well, there's a lot of different things that you can offer a house. The spirit of a house. I had a weird experience once where I remembered being a house spirit and taking care of the people who lived inside of me. It was very weird and interesting. But don't know if that happened in a past life or I just tapped into one that was around. But having a place to put the offerings is usually good, and it can be inside or outside. And, you know, in other cultures, that the guardian of the house or spirit of the house, usually you give them food substances at every meal or at dinner time at a main meal, and then leave it there for a while and then eat the food or take the food out of the house and give it to the animals. It's just all going to depend. But if it's for that, then the spirit will know. And I would put stones around the outside of the house, you know, as offerings to the house or inside the house. It's like your imagination is the main thing. Ian says, hello there and welcome, Quirdo. Violet says, that was wonderful. I look forward to the video and statues. Desideradum says, by the way, did you see the aurora about a week ago? They were seen as far down as Southern California. No, it was cloudy here.
Yeah, it's always, well, most of the time cloudy here, especially at night.
Yeah.
You get an overcast fog that comes in.
Sundrop says, would you say that spells and affirmations are the same if you do ritual with them? They certainly can be. They're not necessarily. I mean, it depends on your definition of a spell. So if a spell is doing something to achieve a result outside of yourself, like to improve your stock in life, help you get a job, protection, healing, that kind of thing. I don't know. Affirmations are generally something that you repeat to try and help transform and change an inner reality that you're experiencing. And it could certainly be considered a spell.
But I would say the difference mainly would be that the spell might use, it uses powers other than the ones
just yourself.
That affect yourself, which is more what affirmations do, is affect you or your subconscious or your thinking and make something happen that way. And spells can also use other energy sources and make things happen. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does to me anyway.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a matter of definitions, and people are going to have different definitions for different words. And the definition is not as important as the action. Doing the thing itself and getting the results that you're looking for, regardless of what it's called, I guess. Ava says, I had a dream where I was in my bed and there was a being or like a creature next to the bed, and it put its hand over my face and it felt like it was sucking the energy from me. Then I woke up tired. Well, it sounds like you need to have some protection while you're sleeping. One of the things that we do is, if something like that is happening in our dream state, we have dream things we do, like throwing pentagrams at things and telling them to leave and go away and back off and that kind of thing. I would be concerned if it happened a lot. If it only happened once, it could just be you're trying to tell yourself that there's someone in your life who's draining you. And this is a very direct way of saying that there's someone outside of you that's draining your energy. So you might want to look at your close circle and any new people that have come into it and pay closer attention to what they say and how they talk and how you feel when you're around them. So if you go into a room with a certain person and every time you leave you feel somewhat drained, that probably means that they're pushing you energetically and it's draining your energy. So I would look at that.
Yeah, if you're having repeated instances, I say don't worry about just once. If it, especially if it doesn't recur over time. But yeah, you could do some sort of energy blocking to make sure that whatever it is, whether it would be a thought form or whatever that might be bothering you, would just be kept away while you sleep.
I found when I was like casting a circle around my bed every night, I had something try to attack me in a dream, and I drew the pentagram, and I thought, this is stupid, because this takes a long time to draw the whole pentagram in order to like blast the thing. So then I started practicing creating the pentagrams for each of the elements without drawing it, just sort of visualizing it in my hand and then pushing it out. So if that happened again, I could just go like that, and it took a lot less time.
Last time I had something like that happen in a dream, my go-to was to throw pentagrams like ninja throwing stars.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of funny instances. Ian had one where he was starting to meditate and something was trying to attack him. He didn't even notice it was there, and the kind of meditation he did just sort of like it dissolved it. It vanished completely when it hit the energy that he was making.
It was thought form like a big head with a trailing nothing behind it. It was like coming at me. It was this little thing, and it was some thought form. It was like, nope, too late to stop now. It was a Kabbalistic letter A, Barden's work, which of course, if air is just blowing randomly, it kind of disperses everything. That's what happened. The air hit this little thought form heading for me, and it just went poof, dispersed it. So accidental dissolution of someone else's thought form can happen. All I can say is it's their own fault if they were sending one. I don't know, maybe it might have been one of my own thought forms as far as that goes.
Yeah, who knows?
Didn't have time to tell. I saw it, then the light blue of the air hit it, and woof, gone.
So Lulu says, I made candles last week, candles with intentions. Awesome. It's always good to make your own stuff when you can. Violet says, I have a piece of iron in the living room underneath a pyrite skull, and it looks great together, but a fairy might not like to come visit, is what I have come to believe from listening. Well, I've never had them not come visit because I have iron athames and other things like that on my altar. I think that again, is something that was created from superstitions from humans and really has nothing to do with the fairy realm, so I don't think that would...
Yeah, it really doesn't seem to have a real thing to it other than a myth as far as I can tell. Or
yeah.
Anything that I've read, really.
I mean, if you genuinely believe that that's what it does, then you would be imbuing the energy of, stay away from me because I have this object into the object, and it could work for that. But I don't think it's really a thing. I don't think the fairies are afraid of iron or that it hurts them or anything else because they're part of the natural kingdom. Iron is in the ground, it's everywhere. And, there's fairy folk who live in the soil and take care of the stones just like there are that take care of the plants and the animals and everything else. So anything that's part of the natural world seems to me that it would not be something that would harm a being of the natural world. Even if it's manipulated by people, that doesn't mean it's not still natural. It's just like different things have been combined together, and pyrite is definitely a natural stone.
Of course, if you charge it up for that purpose, then it will.
Yeah,
but
that's what I said.
If intrinsic.
If you genuinely believe that's what it will do, then you can accidentally charge it up for that purpose. We had a friend who wanted to work with the fairies, and so she believed that was true, so she couldn't use an athame that was made from iron, and I found her a bone athame and bought it for her and gave it to her. But it was her belief. I don't think it's true in reality. Lavender says, I've always wondered if it was a new soul since I always felt out of place. If I was a new soul because I always felt out of place in this world. Well, actually, being an old soul makes you automatically feel out of place in this world because I have felt out of place since I was born. And I've remembered bunches of past lives, so that's not necessarily an indicator. Just means that, society is still in its infancy and hasn't caught up with those of us who know better. Marisol says, yay, I made it. Hi, Marisol, thank you. Sundrop says, yeah, thank you. Gift Happy says, by that definition of affirmation versus spell uses sources outside of self, would Reiki be considered a spell? Well, no, because Reiki is connecting to a source of energy and transmitting it through you, so it's an energy pathway from a certain set of beings that have agreed to allow their energy to be passed through the Reiki practitioner to whoever it is you're sending it to.
Yeah, so it's more like channeling.
Yeah, so it's not really a spell, I don't think.
Channeling energy.
Sundrop says, I hear fairies don't like iron, so we've talked about that already. Violet says, I am so glad you shared that about iron. Iron in the ground. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yay. Sundrop says, what about gnomes? Well, I mean, gnomes would love iron because, they're gnomes. They like to work with metal. According to all of the stories,
precious stones.
They are earth elementals since that's what they are. They are inside the earth. That's what they work with is earth. Not just dirt, but all things of earth, so, and especially under the ground.
And
mines and things like that.
Yeah, from the ones Barden speaks about specifically, there's a lot of them that can help you about ore and things in the earth and precious stones.
And finding treasure.
Yeah, things like that.
If you want to find treasure, gnomes are your guys. They know where everything is buried. That's kind of what they do.
Not that they'll necessarily let you have it.
Well, right. They might want to keep it or not tell you where it is, but that's a whole different subject. So Ava says, I think the iron thing was made up too. Yep. Desert says, can ghosts be killed like a second death, etheric body destroyed, or any other things paranormal investigators could do accidentally that might cause harm? Unlikely, because our ability to do something like that is limited. Yeah.
I think an astral body can be killed as such, but not a mental body. But I don't know how much people on a physical plane are going to affect.
And the things that paranormal investigators do, I don't think can affect them hardly at all. So they practically can't help them. So it's like harming them is unlikely. Yeah, it's a good question, though. I'll have to give it some thought. You can certainly annoy spirits, different kinds of spirit beings, by, trying to do something like that. I met that one non-human spirit up the road from us who was stuck in a house, and previously people had been, throwing water at it and praying at it and yelling at it, and it was pretty upset.
Some of the paranormal investigators do that. They try to get the being pissed off or offended or something, so
in order to get a reaction, they're called trigger events, triggering the spirit in order to get a response. It's like,
doesn't sound too bright to me, but
no. So Julia says, smiles as she finds the door open and slips inside happily. Welcome, Julia. Sundrop says, have you encountered gnomes? Yes, I've had a number of gnomes. In fact, about a dozen or so of them came in my room one night and showed me all of their various faces and wanted to see if I could tell the differences between them, because they all had very unique faces, and it was quite interesting. Julia says, actually, I believe the whole iron repulsion comes from steel formed of meteorite iron ore, that it coincides with the beginning of forged iron steel swords.
Could be.
I don't know that it's true at all, and meteorites are still part of the solar system, mostly. But, yeah. I think it'd be more the intent of the person who's wielding it and what it is that they're thinking of trying to do with it. I mean, if you took, it's a magical object, a magical tool, and if you charged it up to repel fairies and said any fairies that come near this will be utterly destroyed or, harmed and feel ill or whatever, then it would probably do that.
I think she just meant that that's when the whole thing started, that fairies were, due to iron swords being forged from meteorites, and that fairies were, and it could be.
I don't know.
That could be when it started.
Desert says, I wouldn't want to hurt any sentient beings, but protect myself during an investigation. Hey, anything you do to protect yourself is not going to harm a being that has no hostile intent to you. If it's a passive protection kind of a thing that you're doing, and you're not running around stabbing everything with your sword, then anything discomfort that the spirit might feel is of their own doing and of their own making. So I don't worry about that. Marisol said, I just bought a tarot deck. Do you have any tips to learn? Well, you could try like working with one card a day and sleep with the card and just do a meditation on the card. You could try visualizing the card and going into the card in your mind to get a deeper understanding of the symbolism behind the card and what the card is all about. That would be a recommendation for learning a new deck. Of course, reading the book helps too.
Yeah, and just practice, like everything else. Practice is most important.
Sundrop says, oh, I bought a tarot deck too. Julia says, yes, exactly, Ian. New weapons often have a mythos. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. Internet, English, grammar, words. Ed the Dog says, do you believe paranormal investigators should have a code of ethics when investigating? And if so, what is the etiquette you'd recommend? Oh, well, personally,
Well, I say yes.
I think that they should. And not promising something they can't deliver would be rule number one. So if they don't have a rescue medium or a psychic or a sensitive on their team going into a house, a known haunted location, and saying, we're here to help, is just a lie. And I think lying is bad.
Yeah, if they can't actually help and have no
Right, and that's
skills.
frustrating for the spirit that's involved, because the first 10 times they might believe an investigator is there to help them, and then after that they're just going to be angry anytime anyone comes to try and help. So not being think about human etiquette. If you're going into someone else's home, usually you don't bash the door in with a battering ram at 3 o'clock in the morning and start yelling and putting on loud music to wake them up in order to get their attention. So, having common courtesy will go a long way to any paranormal investigation. But people, some of them are asses, that's all there is to it. And I don't know that you could police that kind of a thing. It's not like you could make them sign an agreement, but I don't know that that would do anything at all. And some of them are doing it because they don't believe it's real to start with. And so why would they care about a ghost feeling if they don't think the ghost is really there? So you get that whole mindset happening with some of the investigators.
Yeah,
They're there to disprove the fact that there's
and
anything.
they could potentially end up with some bad luck of some sort due to that, but they would never consider that it was due to what they did. And some people are so, of that sort, are so, of the aggressive sort, are so solid that nothing gets through to them almost from the spirit realm.
Well, right. So if basically being open-minded, not judging and jumping to conclusions, because if you do that, you're automatically changing the nature of whatever you find. To the confirmation bias is huge when it comes to anything, but especially with the paranormal, because spirit can adapt to someone's confirmation bias, and the person might not even know it. So trying to stay clear and have an open mind and not have a firm idea of what's going on, a deciding factor. Because if this is really a scientific-like endeavor, you want to find out what's actually happening. You don't want to find out what you think is happening. So, and that's one of the things, like with the investigations that I've done, almost every single one of them has been a surprise to me. Has not been what I thought might have been the case before I went. So you can have the idea without it making it happen if you're maintaining that kind of open neutrality, and allowing the energy to sort of impact and influence the actions of the investigator. It makes it a lot more likely to succeed, I think. Desideradum says, I had an old friend and her family encountered gnomes in their backyard and they sounded like dogs' squeaky toys.
There's also an account of Crowley encountering a gnome that he lists in his his hagiography, which is basically his self-autobiography. He talks about on one of his I believe it was on one of his mountain climbing expeditions. He says he saw one just as clear as day. Not that that's relative to anything we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's in print that he saw it. Yeah.
Julia says, fingers, stares at them, work babies for me. Desirado says, Ed the Dodge, heck yeah. And Ed says, I agree with your points. I've always felt like it is a tourism of a spirit life. It's a zoo attraction of you're not there to help or interact with purpose or kindness.
Yeah.
I was taken along on a ghost hunt with non-spiritual people, and the spirit kept trying to separate me from the group because I was the only one actually listening, able to communicate to it. Yeah, and I would say that too. It's like I will not go to a location if the person who wants me to go there says, I don't want you to cross over the ghost, because I like having them here, because I'm making a ton of money from saying that I have a haunted location, or because I'm attached to the idea that I've got a cute little girl ghost or whatever, and isn't that adorable? And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not up to you. It's not your call. And if you're going to tell me that up front, I'm not going to agree with it, so I'm not going to go. And I have turned down locations that way.
Pretty much actually that thing, there's a local group around here that we won't work with because of their attitudes, basically.
And then there's something else, speaking of etiquette, I went on their ghost hunt. And they had one ghost there in a local hotel that they could call up and would perform on demand. And then they invited any ghost that was there to go home with anybody who happened to be in the building. And I'm like, excuse me? No. I have boundaries for a reason. Ghosts do not follow me home. And when I'm home, I'm off the clock. And I don't want to get woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning because a ghost thinks they have a really good story that they'd like to tell me, and they would really want me to help them get that story out to like their loved one that they left behind,
And
or
it's
whatever.
Really, it's really annoying when you're on an anniversary vacation
Oh
day
yeah.
that happens. Yeah.
Yes, that
messes
was
up your sleep.
that was an anniversary when I put up a barrier around our sleeping area, and there were 2 local ghosts. They couldn't get in, and I set it up so, like, no one can come in without an invitation. No one's invited. No one has an invitation. I'm sound asleep, and I hear these 2 men yelling, and loudly, and it wakes me up, and I look around, there's no one there, and there's no sounds. I'm like, that was weird, so I go back to sleep. Same thing. 2 men yelling, waking me up, and then I realized that they were 2 ghosts, and they were down. We were on the 2nd floor, and they were on the outside my window on the ground floor, yelling up, trying to get me to invite them in. And I said, no, go away. You're not going to get me today. I'm sorry. I'm here for my anniversary with my husband. So Ed says yes. Violet says, big love, guys. I'm out of here for now. Chat soon. Next Sunday, probably. Take care. Bye, Violet. Have a good class.
Bye.
But yeah, this is a good time of year to talk about this kind of stuff because the veil is thin with the holiday on, with Samhain and with Beltane. It's like the veil tends to be thinner during these 2 events. Julia says, I would have been like, so nope. It's one thing if a ghost comes into my life in some fashion, but quite the nerve of someone else to volunteer me. Be tempted to smack them silly.
Yeah. I hear that.
I mean, I've learned a lot through the years. A spirit once accidentally went through my body to get to the portal that I had opened and left some very distinct impressions behind of her life, which I then had as a dream later, which was kind of annoying. First I was like, oh great, do I have another ghost like in the hotel room where I'm sleeping? But I realized it was her. So that made me more careful in the future if I'm opening up a portal to make sure that there's a clear shot between the spirit and the portal. And also I let them know crossing over through me is not on the menu. They need to just go to the portal and not use me as like a pit stop on the way out. So you'll learn. Val says, hola, from Brazil, I think. I think that's what that means. Welcome. Black Satsang says, can you please translate that?
Well, I see the word psilocybin in there, so.
And I see datura and belladonna.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you worked with psychedelics such as datura, belladonna, or psilocybin and the entities behind those plants?
I did a little bit of work with datura once when I actually found a plant growing wild. But I didn't get much out of it except some uncoordination. Personally, psilocybin is another issue. Belladonna is also kind of dangerous. Datura can be quite dangerous, and so can belladonna. Both of those can kill you pretty easy, while mushrooms are a lot less directly physically hazardous.
At least the psilocybin type.
Yeah, though amanitas and things are bad, but the psilocybin.
Yeah, there are some definitely
yeah.
toxic mushrooms that can destroy your liver, like the death cap mushroom.
Yeah, so that would be my first thought, is those other two are definitely dangerous to use at all. And then I have never met the entities behind the mushrooms, though I think that would be a nice thing to experience, and I would like to, but that hasn't been in the cards for me so far. I've read
You had a spirit of one plant, poisonous plant. Was that nightshade or hemlock? Monkshood?
I believe it was either monkshood or hemlock. Maybe it was hemlock, yeah.
And it told him that it could help him get out of his body, which was true. But it could be permanent, so not a good idea. He has a tendency to eat things if he, spontaneously, but he didn't, so that was good.
Sometimes if I'm very lucky and if I'm really in harmony with nature, they'll talk to me. It doesn't happen all the time. Just very occasionally.
And Val has a big smiley face, so I guess that means we were right. It was hello from Brazil. But yeah, I mean, anything like that, you have to, take into account the fact that you're living in a physical body and natural things can kill you just as easily as non-natural things. Somebody was talking to me just the other day about that, actually, where someone was saying, but it's natural, so it can't hurt you. I'm like, let's see, arsenic, uranium, nightshade, hemlock. I mean, there's like so many natural things out there that can just kill you instantly or make you very, very sick. So being natural is not the only criteria for using something. Julia says, haha, not what I'm looking for, but thanks for the offer, replying to the out-of-body offer. It wasn't a lie. I mean, that was a true thing. Opal says, there's an abundance of people's experiences with datura on YouTube. I can't understand why anyone would try it.
Yeah, like I say, I didn't. The little fooling around with it I did was just because I accidentally found a natural plant growing in Oregon, which I've never seen another one in Oregon. But yeah, I didn't get much out of it. Like I say, I didn't care for the experience myself.
I mean, I think with things like that, if you're going to do like a heavy duty, what is usually used in a shamanic experience, it's wise to do it with someone who actually knows what they're doing and who is in touch with the spirit of the plant.
Put you in the right
whether
context.
It's peyote or whatever.
A lot of times you need to have the right context to be doing a plant in also, if it's not going to become abuse of that plant.
Black Sat Sang says, I've had a number of incredible experiences with the entity behind psilocybin. Good.
I hope I have one of those one of these days. I haven't, but I think it would be most fascinating. I think. I can't say for sure until I've had it, Maybe I won't like them, maybe it would scare me to death. I know I was pretty shocked when I made contact with a cat consciousness, so.
That was definitely not what you expected, projection being what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, warm and cuddly. Oh my God, not. Okay, killing machine, food tube.
But in reality, she was pretty friendly and warm and cuddly, but, that wasn't how she pictured herself.
No. And Julia says, yeah, that would have been me. You hear it all the time, but it's natural. Yeah, so is arsenic. Want a drink? Yeah. I mean, there's like, pools in the desert where there's nothing but dead animals around, which is a clue that you shouldn't drink the water because it's heavily there's arsenic in it. It's arsenic pools. It's like, and the thing is that things that are natural can kill you too. That things that are generally considered good for you, like oxygen and water, both of those can kill you if you have too much or too little. So, Ed says, gotta go, it's been fun. Definitely would love to hear more about your perspective on spirits, ghosts, and paranormal investigations in the future. Your videos and stories on it are so interesting. Well, thank you for dropping by, and we always appreciate it. Val says, hi, I don't know how to speak English very well, but I would like to ask for a video of visualization technique in black obsidian mirror because I'm having a lot of difficulty. Thanks. I'm Brazilian. I think I put an answer to some of that on my video on scrying. Someone asked something about it. It might have been you. And so I tried to suggest a few things. I'll think and see if there's anything else that comes to mind that we can do more about different visualization techniques. But a lot of times it's not what you think it's supposed to be, because you see in the movies someone's visualizing, and they have like an actual person playing the role of the spirit so that everyone can see them. Or the message or whatever is like really clear and all this other stuff because it's a movie. They don't want to make things confusing. In reality, that kind of intuition is often a lot less substantive. It's not as clear as they make it look like it should be. So getting to know yourself well enough to be able to tell what's you and what's not you, again, and what's external and internal is key. And Ian says, thank for your input, Ed. Ed says, and thank you both. You're welcome. Opal says, all the stories I've heard were by those abusing it, but it's unfortunate to hear about the ones who died due to wandering around or passing out and choking. Vanessa V says, any recommendations on welcoming Beltane by oneself? Find a way to go out in the woods and sit under a tree and put your hands on the earth and feel the sun on your face, and go out at night and say hi to the moon, and find a field of flowers and go sit on them. Go to an arboretum where there's things blooming everywhere. I mean, anything in nature. Feed some birds, go to a park, sit on a bench. You don't have to do anything like dramatic. If you're out in the woods by yourself, you can always, take off your clothes or leave your clothes on, or laying on the ground and meditating and trying to connect to the earth would be a good way to go. If you are a musician, you could play music, playing an instrument out in nature would attract, the energy of things. If you're not musical, you could always go out in the woods with some bells and ring some bells and see what comes to check you out, and see if you can make a direct link with something in nature. Because really, that's what it's all about. Gift Happy says, when you talk about meeting gnomes, I wonder, are fire spirits, salamanders, elemental beings one can see and interact with? If so, what are they like? I don't have as easy a time interacting with them as I do with some of the other elementals. But
Yeah.
Ian had an encounter with a fire sprite.
Yeah. They're basically very active, so it's hard to try and make them sit down for a conversation or something. I mean, they're so active, that's part of the difficulty with the fire ones. But I once had one, and I don't know how this happened, and I don't know how it can happen, but apparently a fire sprite got stuck in my oil lamp one time.
It's a magic lamp.
In a magic oil lamp. I was using for magical purposes, and for a couple of weeks I was trying to figure it out. Books and things kept falling off the shelves and things, and everything was trying to hit my lamp and knock it over. And I just didn't get it. I thought it was just something that had been happening. When I finally opened up my lamp to light it, I hadn't lit it in a couple of weeks, then a fire sprite came out, and it was small and made this little light pattern in the air as it left, this little decorative light pattern as it flew away. It was like
a
trail
trail
behind it. Yeah, and it was very pretty, and I was like, wow, what are you? And it said it was a fire sprite, I think, or did it say pixie?
Yeah, I can't remember.
I think it was fire sprite that it says. I'm a fire sprite, and then went off, and I didn't know there was such a thing as fire sprites, or B, that one could somehow get trapped in my lamp, and I don't understand what happened. Must have been like in there when I blew the lamp out or something.
That's the only thing that makes sense. That it was in there when you were doing your magical thing. It got attracted to the lamp because it's fire and it's a fire thing.
But after that,
then you blew it out at just the wrong moment.
Yeah. After that, though, no things tried to fall on my lamp anymore.
So I guess the lesson to learn in that is if you're using a magic lamp, before you blow it out, you say, if there's anything in the lamp that needs to leave now. I'm about to blow you out. So it doesn't get stuck.
I don't know. I have no explanation of why a fire sprite should get stuck in my lamp where it can't escape, but I guess it needed to be like the fire again.
I think that's got to be it. It's the only thing that makes sense. Gift says, I was just reading jinns are associated with fire spirits. Maybe it has to do with the genie in a bottle.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that, except I'd like to know, more about how they did that. I know there were certain magical techniques they used for...
And jinns are definitely fire spirits. Yeah. That is definitely what they are. Charity says, hello. Hi, Charity. Sundrop says, do you believe in unicorns? I've been reading about different creatures. Well, I don't think the unicorns exist physically in our realm. I don't know if they ever did or not, but they are definitely a magical creature, being, spirit, energy, or whatever, and I've seen one. In a vision, I guess, you would say. So I think that, in spirit, things can take on any form or shape they want. And so anything you can imagine can exist in the spirit realm, whether there is an actual correlation in the physical realm for it or not. And certainly, like the dragons that I've encountered are not physical dragons, although some of them are incredibly powerful as far as their energy is concerned. It's not like they don't make an impact, for sure, but they're not like something you could catch and put in a zoo or make physical contact with. Queerdo says, I've actually seen a real live physical unicorn. It was a goat with one horn on his forehead. You're talking about Lancelot. Up in Washington State. I know that unicorn. He was pretty interesting. But, who knows for sure. I mean, certainly, his name's escaping me right now. I know his name. But the guy who did it. We were in communication with him when I was channeling up in British Columbia, so I heard about him back then, and he's still around. He still has an active community up in Washington State. So you must be close to my age, maybe?
Uh-oh.
At least old enough to know that, because that was like in the late 70s, early 80s that Lancelot was around. Not sure how long goats live, but a lot of people went to meet him.
Was he born that way, or he wasn't surgically done?
Well, see, there's some question about that. It was like the two horns that usually grow separate grew together into a single horn in the forehead.
Okay.
And the idea was that if there were real unicorns, they would have to be an animal that had horns to start with, and the goat is one of the forms of the unicorn that they have on ancient tapestries around the world in Europe. And so it makes more sense that it be a goat rather than a horse, which is what we now have, because horses have never had horns, but lots of goats have horns. Quito says, I'm 50, but yeah, the time frame you mentioned tracks. Black Satsang says, what the unicorn actually symbolizes is usually depicted with a virgin. Well, it's purity, the idea that only a virgin of pure heart can approach the unicorn, and was part of its mythos, and the idea that the unicorn's horn could prevent death and heal any, stop poisons. A lot of the myths around the unicorns have to do with healing and that kind of thing, where the king of the land wanted to have a cup made out of a unicorn horn, so if someone was trying to kill him, I'm thinking if someone was trying to kill him, then it probably was not a good king. That's just sort of my opinion, but anything put in the cup would be purified by the unicorn's horn and then not harm whoever drank from it. And the idea that a woman who's had sex is somehow sullied is just really stupid. But that was the idea that they had, was that once you have sex, somehow you lose your power, or you lose a certain part of yourself, or something like that. Which is another way to keep women in their place. Another one of those misogynistic kind of tales that's out there, unfortunately. But yeah. Jono says, I can't remember whether I have brought this up before, but I am kind of convinced Bigfoot is a spirit being. There are definitely a lot of people who have seen a Sasquatch, however you spell that. Yes.
That's true. There are a lot of reports.
Sasquatch, Yeti, Bigfoot. There are a lot of reports. And Opal says, I agree with you, Jono. And it could very well be. I don't know. And when it comes to cryptids, it's one of those things. Until someone actually finds one alive in a body, there's no way to prove it exists. But then every so often we get like prehistoric creatures that have thought to be extinct show up, so you never know.
And then there's the platypus, which is just a ridiculous being anyway.
I know, the platypus, the poor platypus. No one believed that that guy found something real. He had to actually find a living one in order to prove he didn't put it together with body parts from a whole bunch of different animals.
Which was what they thought, doctors and things at the time.
Beavers
sewed it together from different animals.
Sewed it together, beaver's tail, and and all the other stuff. Opal says, my indigenous elders say they can walk between both worlds, the Sasquatches. There are also, Gifts Happy says, there are also natural beings that Americans have asked to protect different areas. Well, yeah, I've met a bunch of different guardian beings that are there to protect an area that are based with the Native American culture that still exist, and they're still trying to do their job. It's kind of interesting. Julia says, yeah, I can't count the amount of eye rolling I've done about virgins. I had to pop my head on the back to get my eyes right again more than once. Yep. It's just this, it's nowhere, it's just as obnoxious as saying a woman's not really a woman if she hasn't had a child, because she hasn't fulfilled her purpose in existing. I mean, all these things are ridiculous. Opal says, I think they are possibly a type of jinn. I hear they are attracted to fire. Some encounters talk about them being almost mesmerized by it. Well, that could be if they're an animal. Things are mesmerized by light a lot of times. So, who knows? Marisol says, ooh, what are they like, the guardians? Well, when they're acknowledged, they're large. Okay, let's start with that. The land guardians are huge. They're not a small spirit. They're big. And because of that, they can have a big impact if something happens that upsets them. And one of our members of our group had rented a house that was right on the land, right next to where this guardian was living. And it could tell that she was a witch and felt that she should know what it was and should acknowledge it, and she didn't acknowledge it or understand what it was, and it started to get upset about that lack of attention, acknowledgement, or whatever. So she came to me to ask me to go to her house because she thought she had like some kind of a nasty ghost or something that was there, and I went over there, and it was immediately clear to me that it was a land guardian, and what the problem was the lack of acknowledgement. And so I had some Apache tear with me. We did an offering. It was strong enough that when it came into the house for me to get more information from it, it actually vibrated the floor where we were sitting. There were 3 of us that were there, and the whole floor was just vibrating. It was interesting. And so, after that, everything was fine. It was just, hey, you should know I'm here and I expect an offering. And she was a smoker, so she gave it some tobacco as an offering. It doesn't make sense for non-smokers to do that, but she was, so she did. And so the once that happened, everything was fine. She would just acknowledge it periodically and it would do its thing. And I guess it remembered me because we had some strange man who stayed in our house for a night, and it came into my house, which I have never had a land guardian come into my house. It filled up my whole house. It was about the size of my house. And suddenly it was there, and I didn't understand why it was there until later. But apparently it came as a warning to warn me that there was danger. And, we survived the night, and we got rid of the guy. He was definitely not all there. But that was kind of interesting. So that's my encounter with that. Julia says it's a means of controlling women, mostly about their sexuality and to make sure they have more children to further the ambitions of men. Yep, and no doubt about it. Quirdo says, on a completely different note, I found my ex's athame. I'm not sure how to properly get rid of it. I don't have access to property in which I could bury it. Any suggestions? Can you send it back to them? That might be a way of getting rid of it. Decharge it and give it to... if there's a magical store where it could be resold, or give it to Goodwill or someplace like that, after you've decharged it.
Decharging it, you can...
make sure you have no connection to it before you give it away.
I'd recommend almost maybe not touching it directly as much as you can avoid.
Wrap it in something like polyester, which is yucky, and nothing gets through.
If you want to stay away from the energy, and then you might use the elements to clear it out, like, have it, dip it in a thing of water and focus on the water pulling, and in fact you might mix some salt with it to get the earth aspect, and then focus on the water and the salt pulling everything, all the energies out of it, and then you throw that water away where it won't come into contact with anybody, flush it down your toilet or something. And you can also do the same to get the other two elements in, air and fire. You can smoke it over some incense and smoke it up really good, like over sage would be perfect for that, or any kind of incense really, and focus on the air and the fire, the heat, taking all the energy out of it that way, so that when you're done, what you have is just an energyless physical body of what used to be an athame, and then it doesn't
and it's
really
then
matter.
just a knife.
Yeah, then it doesn't really matter what you do with it.
Right. So Marisol says, wow. Jono says, I remember an amazing story about a Native American tribe who tried to make peace with the Sasquatches in their land, so they had a meeting with them, and the Bigfoot said, no, leave us alone. Quirdo says, we're out of contact, so I can't return it, but I really appreciate the suggestions. Thank you. You're welcome. Jono says, the land guardian at the new place I'm staying at is doing an excellent job. The place feels healthy and alive. I've lived in dead places before. It's draining. Well, yeah, I can imagine so. It would be very draining. So, yay. Yeah, the land guardian here was just like when the local people, the tribe, would go through the area, they would like acknowledge it, give it an offering, go through its protected lands, say goodbye, treat it well. And
a lot of the nature stuff comes to just having enough respect for the nature spirits.
Yeah.
Just respect. That'll solve 90% of your problems.
Common courtesy.
Yeah.
I guess common courtesy is not common, just like common sense isn't common either.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Something that should be common.
Right. Something that should be common.
Yeah.
Respect, courtesy, paying attention.
Should be common. Yeah.
So Black Sang says, some entities seem to move easily from realm to realm. Yes. Some of them have a harder time. Like some of the, one of the group of spirit beings that I channeled when I was doing my channeling work came from a level far enough away from normal humanity that it was difficult to make the connection in both directions. And so Moida would make the connection first. So she would come in and sort of tune my energy, and I would know it was going to happen because I could suddenly sense the other guy. and she was like rearranging my energetic signature or whatever to accommodate him when he would come. He was kind of intense, very focused energy. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting. So it all depends. Opal says we call them Kichi Sabe. It's a Ojibwe term. They're also one of the 7 grandfather teachings representing honesty. Cool. It's always good to have good teachings. Shay didn't make it in to say hi today.
No.
Must be busy at work. Gift Happy says, have you done a video on how to heal land? Like, what if the land is an Indian burial place of those people being forced from their habitat to wastelands?
I know you've done a video on land spirits of some sort, but it's been long enough. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Well, we did, when we were staying at the cabin, the damage to that power spot from some of the people who stayed there, I rearranged it by using different crystals to bring in the toxic energy, transform it, and put it back out there. So I would think that it'd be along those lines, finding out where the core icky spot is. Like, usually if there's something, if it's like that, there's some kind of a black core somewhere on the land. And if you can find that, and then you can seal that up and change the energy and fill it in with the healing stuff, then it'll transform the land. Or if there's a spirit that's stuck that's causing the problems. I did that in a forest up the coast where it was really icky energy underneath the forest, and there was a couple of people who'd been murdered right there, and helping them to cross over sealed that rift, energetic rift, and then the positive energy was able to flow in. The whole place changed, like almost instantly. You can tell if it's worked pretty much right away, because you bring in the light energy and it changes it. So you could like charge up stones and bury them in the area that would absorb negative energy and take it away, like on the edges of it, and put in positive stones the inside of it in order to pull the energy in, like the amethyst or the crystal or selenite or something that you've charged up to pull in the positive energy to heal the land. That's probably what I would do. I like working with the stones that way because they're part of nature to start with, and they're physical enough you can carry them around and put them in different places.
Yeah. We have
so
planted some around our hometown here to, at the time we did it, to try and help just heal the area in general and get rid of some of the negativity and stuff. I went out and buried them around.
I mean, from their lands to reservations. Well, that's all I can think of at the moment. Charity says, wearing purple today also, my favorite color. Mine too.
Yeah,
It's my favorite color.
Camera looks better today this time than last week, but your purple is still not quite as purple as it really is. But it doesn't look bad. Yep.
I'm moving it around so we can see it better.
Yep.
This actually looks pretty close on my computer. So today I'm
Yeah,
wearing
looks
I'm
close
wearing
right
a
here.
black amber, a bone pendant of Sarasvati that I found locally, a piece of blue kyanite that's been sprayed with titanium, I guess, that my daughter got me, a piece of lapis, just a little basic donut lapis I've had on my earth altar for a while. It just felt like wearing it. And then my necklace, of course, of rubies and emeralds that I like so much. So, the black amber was something I found in Santa Cruz. And the stones, or the beads in between, are actually cast from snake vertebrae, apparently. So they're not actually the vertebrae themselves, but that's what they made them out of.
They're metal, but
They're
they're
metal.
shaped like the vertebrae. Yeah.
Right. So they made I guess what you call it?
Cast.
Right. I guess it's just called a cast, a pattern
Yeah.
thing, out of the snake vertebrae and put it in between. Black amber is a little less common than the other forms of amber. And it's not really super black. I mean, if you look through the light, it has sort of a red hue to it, which is kind of interesting. So. And Marisol says, love your flowers too. Yeah, that actually was a flower arrangement of silk flowers that I made that was in my office for years, and I thought it'd be fun to have it in here. Sundrop says, are you familiar with crystal spheres? How do you use them? You can use them like any other kind of crystal. We have crystal balls. I've got an amethyst sphere. You can use them to like do scrying and kind of stuff with, or just to hold. You can rub them on your body to take things out or put things in.
They're really good at holding moon energy in general.
Depending on the crystal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be for like quartz.
Right.
Coated crystal.
Yeah, we have one right over there on our north altar. I have one of my crystal balls is over there. Charity says, cool, very beautiful jewelry. Thank you. I like the fact that you can wear jewelry that's got, an energetic signature to it and a purpose to it and so forth, and no one else knows. It's a secret you can wear in the open. Yep. So depending on the mood I'm in, I almost wore my aquamarine crown today, but I thought that might be a little bit much. But hey, I thought about it. I tried it on and looked at it and thought, yeah, that looks pretty cool, but I think I'm going to leave it in here and not wear it. Because then it might fall off. Who knows? Lose my crown.
Yeah, I don't want to accidentally increase the water in this area.
Yeah, we have enough water right now as it is. Hopefully soon we will have a way to fix the roof in the temple. And if that happens, there's a chance we might be having to have our show from a different room in our house while they're doing the roof out here. It depends on how long the job is going to take exactly, since we don't know yet. They're just speculation at this point. But hey, some great questions. Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation as usual. Got just a couple of minutes if anyone has any last minute questions they want to get in. Vanessa said, hey everyone, I'm new here. Been learning lots from your videos. How can we show more appreciation to the elementals and connect with them? I'm still learning and have an altar dedicated to nature. Well, meditating on them, thinking about their properties, beginning to understand what their energy signature is. That would be.
Yeah, you could also give them something just as a gesture. Like you might give something to water elementals by throwing something into a lake or into the ocean or something, or into a river, a natural water area. And I think the feeling associated with doing that is more important than what the object is. If you feel like you're trying to be friendly with them and want to be in touch with them, that kind of thing. Of course, you could burn something for fire and evaporate something for air.
Right.
Fluid condenser, or, Of course, Tibetans have the prayer flags, which are interesting in that the wind pulls off a thread at a time. Those gradually disintegrate from the wind, and it pulls off a thread at a time each one is supposedly a prayer going out into the universe.
Yep, which is actually an air thing. Yeah. Think about the different things that represent the element and try to incorporate one or two or three or whatever of them on your altar. Like I have, special feathers, bells, incense, and things like that I associate with the air element itself. And a light can be a fire. It doesn't have to be a burning fire in order for it to represent the idea of fire.
Right. Charcoal and an incense burner.
Yeah.
Which is closer to an actual fire. But
you can have a special cup that you fill with fresh water like once a week or every day or whatever, and charge it up and think about it or meditate on it. doing different kinds of meditations on the elements themselves to understand both their positive and their negative attributes, because they've all got both. Like fire is really good at destroying things, but then without fire we wouldn't have the spark of life, we wouldn't have creativity, we wouldn't have willpower, determination, and those other characteristics and so forth that are associated with the fire element. So as you begin to understand more about each element, you start to see reflections of that in yourself. And usually the ones you connect with the easiest are not the ones you really need to work for or work with in order to balance yourself. But it's in the beginning, you work with what's the easiest to work with and then slowly expand your repertoire out. So Sundrop says, thank you. Lewell says, time went by fast. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Sundrop says, I'll let you know if I take up Cyber Witch's Magic at Home course. Yes, let us know, and let us know how it goes. It's always good to get other viewpoints of things.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a good course, since I don't know anything about them. Julia says, as always, I am most appreciative for this channel and everyone here. Thank you so much, and blessed day to all who want it. Thank you, Julia. Vanessa says, thank you both. Very helpful. You're welcome. Ian says, blessed be to everyone, and hope you all have a bright and happy life. So, I'm going to say bye now, too. And everybody, awesome. And hope to see you all again. If you need to send me a message or something, you can send me an email at shifrasmagicalcove@gmail.com. And let me know if there's anything I can help with. I try. I don't always know all the answers, but hey. I'll give you what I do know, and then you can decide what you want to do about it. So blessed be everybody, and have a wonderful May Day or Samhain, depending on where you live.